Pastor Todd Matchett was bankrupt financially, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. The only thing that was able to draw him up out of the rock bottom was God.
So someone asked me the other day what it was like in that time of my life to be exiled. And I think the hardest thing is that I knew better. I was raised in a Christian home. I had godly parents. They brought me to church. But I reached a point in my life where I wanted to go my own way. And I thought that would bring me satisfaction. I thought it would bring me reward. I thought it would bring me some of the things that I was looking for. Well, for one, it did not. But when I found myself kind of like the prodigal son in Luke chapter 15, in my own pig pen, I knew better. And it was devastating. I could barely look in the mirror every day because I was filled with so much shame and remorse and regret. It's something for when everybody else tells you, hey, you're in a mess, look at the mistakes you've made, look what you've done to your life. But even with all of those voices, until you see it for yourself and you kind of smell it for yourself, if I can put it that way, and I just got to that point of that, I thought I was at rock bottom, and then there was another layer, there was another level, and I thought, where is this going to end? I lost hope. I lost faith. I lost any sense of the future that I thought that I once had. I was bankrupt, emotionally, spiritually, professionally, financially. But finally, my upbringing and all of the things that my parents had instilled in me and all of the pastors and all of the sermons and all of the Sundays came back to me, and I thought maybe, just maybe, there might still be hope for me. And I called out to God. And I thought, I think God will take me back, but I'll probably never have the kind of relationship that I had with God prior to making those poor choices. But to my surprise and to my delight, to my utter amazement, that when I began to move in God's direction, I found that the heart of God ran towards me, embraced me, restored me, renewed me, put me back up on my feet. God had forgiven me, but I hadn't forgiven me. And I held myself in captivity for an extended period of time that was unnecessary. But when I started attending a local church, I found a family. I found a welcome. I found acceptance. No one judged me. No one held my sins against me. No one thought less of me, but they embraced me. And to this day, I don't know if I would be on this seat in this sanctuary where I preach every Sunday now as Pastor Todd, the campus pastor at Dream City Church, Glendale, had I not found a home, quite honestly, in that local church.
Well, today I am with Pastor Todd Matchett, our Dream City Church Glendale campus pastor. Thanks for being here, Pastor Todd.
I'm excited to be here, Aubrey.
Well, I have so many questions for you because your life is amazing to me. You would never have imagined you went through a season like you did, and now you're a pastor with children in ministry. It's amazing what God can do through someone's life.
Yep.
So what was that breaking point for you that made you realize, okay, I've got to change?
I grew up in a Christian home. I had all of the fundamentals and the foundation in place, but I reached that age when I really kind of was running from God. Just a rebellious streak, thinking I knew better, thinking that maybe some of the things that my parents had passed on to me really didn't fit my life. And I chased that probably for 5 or 6 years. But as the Bible says, there is a way that seems right unto a man, but its end leads to death. I came to that dead end, emotionally, spiritually, financially, in every way. And when I hit that place, not unlike the prodigal son in Luke chapter 15, I basically woke up in a pig pen, came to my senses and said, I'm going to make my way back to the Father's house. That's what I did.
Absolutely. So since fully devoting your life to God, how has your life shifted?
Well, everything that I thought was dead and deceased and in a state of decay in terms of the future and the hope that the Bible talks about in the book of Jeremiah, much to my surprise, all of those things were resurrected and renewed in my mind and body and spirit. And from that moment to this moment right here, everything in my life has changed, and it's because of the presence of God, the purposes of God, the promises of God, and that has affected and infected my relationships, my career choices, the friendships, the places that I live, the way that I basically spend my life. There's not an area of my life that it hasn't touched. That's how great God is.
And so what's it like for you now seeing all of your children, all 4 of them are involved in ministry?
Well, it was really quite surprising because Renee and I really made a conscious decision that we were never going to demand or expect and put that kind of pressure on them, because through the years, we would see a lot of people kind of unintentionally force their children into those paths or those career choices, even though it's a calling. And yet, as our kids were maturing and growing, they watched their mother and their father, and they picked up on really how happy and how blessed we are to do what we're doing. And so they're making those choices for themselves. So it's pretty awesome. I gotta tell you, I'm not gonna lie. It's incredible.
Well, it's so fun to see your whole family together and the joy you have doing God's work with each other. It's absolutely so much fun to watch from the outside. What would you say, Pastor Todd, to people who are still lost in their season of life, kind of like you were?
I would say that it's never too late. You can still be what you could have been. It may be slightly different because you'll be older and you'll be in a different age and stage in this life. But I have found personally, even after wasting 6 or 7 or 8 years and thinking, oh man, I've really set myself so much further behind where God would have had me. When I really came full circle, I realized that God's purposes were just as vital, just as real, just as right now in those moments. And I would tell people, don't give up on God, don't give up on yourself, don't give up on the future and the hope that is still waiting on you.
And what would you say to pastors or maybe people who have a calling on their life to go to ministry, who have had a really rough past, who may think, well, I'm not qualified now. Look at the things I've done. Could God still ever use me for my future? What would you say to them?
I would say that those experiences actually give them an advantage in going to the ministry, because it allows them to have the ability to relate to people that sometimes people who take a traditional route to ministry, which is basically right out of high school, right into Bible school, and I'm not down on that, but sometimes that's unrelatable to people in everyday life. And I found in my own case, I can touch some people and relate to some people that some other people that have gone the more traditional routes cannot. And so I've used some of the scars, some of the history, some of the mistakes, even some of the regrets to God's advantage to advance His kingdom. So don't disqualify yourself. It says in 2 Corinthians chapter 1 that the things that you've experienced actually are the earmarks of your ministry going forward.
That is so amazing. So, Pastor Todd, you have an incredible testimony with not only your history, but now your children.
Yeah.
And what is that balance of having children in the church, but maybe they don't want to be in the church? What is that balance of forcing but not forcing? What's the importance of church in a child's life?
Well, I will say that at the end of the day, I know it's very common in today's culture that parents want to be friends with their children. And actually, Renee and I have taken a very hard stand against that philosophy. We're parents first. I'm a father first. She's a mom first. We're friends secondly. But when it comes to church, you know, my parents raised me this way: as long as you live under my roof, and it was never harsh, it was never unkind, it wasn't never abusive or anything like that, but the rules were the rules. And if you live under our roof, you're going to church. And I am so grateful, because when I wandered far from the Lord and I had those prodigal 6 or 7 years, all of the teachings, all of the lessons, all of the time that my parents had invested in bringing me to church, guess what? They were still inside of me, and they would come out in those seasons. And that ultimately is what led me back to God. So I would say to parents, listen, you don't have to be best friends. Be a mother, be a father, set the rules, take your kids to church. They'll thank you someday for it. I promise you that.
Well, thank you so much for being here today, Pastor Todd. Dream City Church has so many amazing campuses with many different amazing campus pastors who are ready to link arms with you and help you walk out this journey that you are going through right now. Check out our website, dreamcitychurch.us, to learn more.